I'm Bob.
Hi, Bob.
I think it's sad. I think we learned the bare minimum. I think it's really frustrating that this is something that we still have to fight for today. I think it should have been done with a long time ago. And all we can do is just stay educated and stay aware and keep fighting.
I remember seeing a few years before that in the South, the cops with the German Shepherds that they were letting loose on black people in the South demonstrating for their rights. I remember seeing the water cannons being sprayed on them and they're getting knocked across the sidewalk because of the force of the water. Watching that history of the Black Panthers brought back a lot of memories and some things that I hadn't thought about for a while.
Did the Black Panthers, did they start during Vietnam? Like, I'm trying to remember. I know that there was a big presence of them during Vietnam, but I don't know if was their established date, because I could remember my dad telling me that he knew all this stuff was going on at home, but he was fighting in Vietnam.
Okay.
And so they didn't really, like, he was like, all this history happened.
Right.
But to
and
him,
he was not.
It was a very different history.
Yeah.
Because he came home and it was almost like, it was weird because people ask him if he lived through it, and he goes, yeah, I lived through it, but I had to learn about it. So I didn't know, like, and I had heard about I knew the Black Panthers were part of the Vietnam War during that time, but I didn't know.
There were a lot of issues that were going on from the mid-'60s on.
Yeah, I don't know if that was the second wave, like that was their rise back up again during that time, or if that was when they became a presence. Because that's when in history I think of them. History of Vietnam, because that's when
Right.
So I'd be interested to actually find that out.
Yeah. Check out. I will confess my ignorance. You ask a good question, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's not a matter of knowing. There's just so much history.
Do you guys know anything about Malcolm X?
It's like you touch on it and you know that you've heard it, but to say
not
specifics,
really.
it's like with us. It's like to say specifics is hard.
What about Martin Luther King?
No, that one's
Martin Luther King did a lot of really good things, no doubt. But in terms of school, he seems to be like one of the 3 black people that are talked about, especially during Black History Month. Harriet Tubman and Rosa Parks. Malcolm X was a very complex character, and some of what happened with him still hasn't been dealt with today. In the early 60s, he was part of Nation of Islam, which you probably haven't heard of, but Farrakhan and Prophet Muhammad Elijah, and it was a black nationalist movement. They weren't really Muslims. They were a black nationalist movement. And that was the initial exposure most of the world got to, most of the country got to Islam. So it was equated with terrorism because these guys were militant and they were disciplined, and that hadn't happened before, and it was scary to a lot of white people. Anyway, Malcolm was a hoodlum. He got involved with Nation of Islam. He cleaned up his act a bit, and then he went on the Hajj. He took a trip to Mecca, and he discovered what Islam is. And when he came back, he broke with the Nation of Islam because he discovered what Islam truly was. He and his family did not have money. They were poor. He didn't fool around. He was a straight shooter, and he put himself out there. He was assassinated when he was given a speech, I think at 65, comparing the two, Malcolm to Martin. Malcolm had a stronger moral integrity. Martin Luther King had some money. He wasn't rich, but he had money.
They came at it in 2 different ways, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's when I think of the 2. I think one came at it one way,
right,
and one came at it another way when it came to how they decided to get their message out.
But I
So-
guess the point that I'm trying to make is there's good people out there. We've all got flaws. We've all got to work together to make the world a better place, and it takes every one of us. When you get to be old enough, make sure you vote. I don't care who you vote for, just vote.